right, good evening and welcome to the Historic Review Board for March 25th, 2025. We will call the order, please. Call to order and roll call.
Board Member Edgar?
Here.
Board Member Fulkerson? Here. Vice Chair Green?
Here.
Chair Powell?
Here.
Board Member Lawrence is excused.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a group of meeting minutes that we need to approve or not. I'm open to a motion.
Just one typo, by the way, the May 02 meetings, we actually have June. At the top it says 5/27, I think, and it's actually June minutes that we're approving. It was in the packet, so with that change, I move to approve the minutes.
With that change.
With that change. With that change.
Do we have a second?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Board Member Edgar?
Aye. Yes.
Board Member Fulkerson? Yes. Vice Chair Green?
Aye.
Chair Powell?
Aye. All righty, public comments. Do we have anyone who is interested in anything other than what we have on the agenda this evening? Online? Nope, nothing in, okay, we can move on. And I grabbed the wrong one. Oops, here we go. All right, so we have two applications this evening. HR 250008 and GLUA 25-00002 and HR 25-0002. First one was new construction on 914 Van Buren. The second one is solar panels on 507 Madison Street. So I will read the hearing information now. Okay, we have two public hearings tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Historic Review Board are to be unbiased, and before the start of the hearings, I will ask the Historic Review Board whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I'll also ask whether any of the Historic Review Board members have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any Historic Review Board person about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Historic Review Board will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the Historic Review Board website. Public testimony will be called on in the order it was requested in advance of the meeting. If you have not emailed city staff at planning@oregoncity.org to request to speak and would like to testify, please raise your hand virtually or physical hand if I ask if there are any others in the audience who would like to participate. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and city of residence. If you'd like to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please state your mailing address or email address. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, reports, pictures, or other exhibits to be used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open, and if they are not given to the staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals, or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond to, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the City Commission or State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages, in circuit court. Okay, now I'll ask on this application, which is 25-00008 at 914 Van Buren. If each Historic Review Board has any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, or if you have visited the site. If there was a site visit, the Historic Review Board must declare what he or she perceived. Board member Paul?
I have no bias, or I did not go out to the site.
Okay. Board member Green?
I have visited the site, no ex parte contact and no conflict of interest.
Okay. Board member Fulkerson?
I have not visited the site, and I have no conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. I have visited the site, and I have no conflict of interest at this time. All right, we will now go to Christina for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Powell. We actually have Melissa Lopez, our assistant planner, who will be presenting this evening. And I'll assist as needed, but done a great job so far. So, Melissa, over to you.
So we are looking at new construction.
Can you move closer, Mike?
Sure. Is that better?
That works better.
Okay.
Actually, you can take it even, it's really sensitive. You can go real close.
We're looking at new construction of a detached triplex in the McLaughlin Conservation District at 914 Van Buren Street. Next slide. So the applicant is proposing 2 detached 2-story homes with simple vernacular elements to create a detached triplex. The proposed design provides a lower mass and uses an architectural design that is recommended for the McLaughlin Conservation District and readily found in the area. The applicant has done their best to reduce the mass by breaking the development into 2 smaller structures. No historic resources abut this site, and as conditioned, staff finds that the proposal will not adversely affect the significance of the McLaughlin Conservation District. This approach is a successful strategy to ensure incompatibility and provide for additional dwelling units in the city. We do ask for HRB direction to determine if an additional condition is needed to be added for the windows at the left elevation of Unit 1 and 2. We have written a draft condition, so we're just asking either add a condition or if you concur with the proposed draft condition that we've written. The applicant actually attended the Historic Review Board meeting for design advice on March 25th and received some feedback from the board, and they have thus submitted new elevation plans that have added some of the guidelines that you gave them for advice. Next slide, please. So we did receive 2 public comments. They considered lot coverage, runoff and drainage impact, building height, parking, sidewalks, and privacy concerning the setbacks, window placement, and landscaping/fencing. In response, in the staff report, we've shown that the dimensional standards meet the zone requirements, and they can be found in table 1708.040 of the staff report. Parking, erosion control, runoff, and drainage is not a criterion for approval through the historic review process. A site obstructing fence or privacy trees or landscaping are not required unless the board determines that such improvements are needed to ensure compatibility with within the conservation district. And again, we've provided a draft condition that removes the upper story rectangle fixed windows and ensures a minimum number of 1/1 windows on the left side elevation of both units in response to those public comments. On the next slide, you'll see the site location with the star. On the other side, you will see the location where the arrow is pointing down to where the two new units will be sitting, one in front and one directly behind. And the next slide is going to show the view from the rear of the property facing to the front. It's a non-designated resource, and the image on the other side is showing, it's pointing to the closest resource on that street, which sits across the street, kind of adjacent at 903 Van Buren, which is the E.E. Howell House. And you'll see where the starred location of this site is, and that there's no other designated resources in the direct vicinity of this site. On the next slide, we have the site plan. It's kind of hard to see, but the existing house, and then the two units on the side, just slightly in front of the current existing residence. The next slide is showing Unit 1 and Unit 2 elevations, which were changed slightly from when they came in for design advice. The next slide is showing their general floor plan. Both units appear to have the same floor plan design. So you can see the first and second floor. On the next slide, we're going to show the recommended conditions of approval, focusing more on number 3 and number 4, where this number 3 is for the windows. The applicant shall revise the left elevation of units 1 and 2 to remove upper story rectangle fixed windows and ensure that there are a minimum of 4 1/1 windows on the left elevation, or a combination of 3 1/1 windows and 3 square windows, fixed casement or awning. Number 4 is for the front porch. The applicant shall redesign the front porch of Unit 1 to utilize a 4/12 hipped roof to conform with the design of requirements of the vernacular style and differentiate it from Unit 2. The final rear and front porch designs for both units shall follow the HRB policies, which are listed out in the next slide. And it just goes on to kind of give some of the typical conditions of approval for historic review. We have on the next slide, the options are to approve the proposal with conditions, which is what staff is recommending, approve the proposal with modified conditions and provide revised findings, deny the proposal and provide revised findings, or continue the hearing and request more information.
Okay. Anyone have questions of staff at this point? Nope. Nope.
Other than I would like to say, I did visit the site previously when it came up for design review.
All right, thank you. Okay, then I guess we could bring up the applicant.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Name and city of residence, please.
Alex Shaw, and I live in Westland.
Okay. Any presentation, anything you'd like to present or talk about?
That's actually my first time seeing the report, so some news to me. I didn't know vinyl windows are not allowed. I thought they just had to be black.
What now?
Vinyl windows are not allowed.
No, vinyl is not.
Oh, okay.
For HRB.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. News to me. And then on the hip roof for the covered porch on the front unit, I thought at the design advice meeting we had talked about doing a hip or doing gable. It seemed like either way was kind of fine, but it seemed kind of like you prefer the hip. I prefer the gable. I think it looks nicer, but it does look like probably less vernacular. I don't know. I'm okay with it either way, I guess. I just prefer not the hip roof, but either way it is fine. I just want to, my priority would be to try to get it approved today, regardless of mostly what you guys want to do. Hopefully, you guys can hopefully we can approve with conditions. If you have some conditions you want to throw in there, I'm probably fine with them. I just want to try to get it approved today. I don't want to push it off till next meeting.
Okay. Questions of the applicant? Anyone?
I noticed that there actually isn't a window schedule. The window sizes aren't shown on the plan. There's just a designation. So there's obviously someplace in a larger set of plans, a window schedule. The paired single hung windows, which I like, and I like the proportion, but I'm pretty sure those are too small for egress. And I think in the application there was some notation that single hung or hinged. So I'm going to speculate, and maybe you can answer this, but if those bedroom windows in particular are actually casement windows with just a divider bar. Do you know the answer to that, or?
I don't, but I thought they were big enough for egress, so I don't know. I'll have to double check. I thought they were big enough for egress. All the window sizes are on the floor plans. I don't think there's a window schedule on there, but
there's a designation for the windows, but no window schedule. Like it looks like an I. It's a little blurry when you make it large, but I mean, there's basically just a call out letter that would reflect a window schedule. But to meet egress with a single hung, you would need a minimal of 3x5 to meet egress. So a pair of 3x5s would look rather out of proportion in my mind. I personally, and this is perhaps a discussion with the rest of the board, I mean, there's been what you will have, if that's a casement window with just a divider bar, is the top and bottom sash will be coplanar. There'll be one plane. And there's been pushback before about that not being historically appropriate. But the caveat on a case like this, in my mind, is you either would have probably a single window. I think a pair of 305s would look a little bit large.
Particularly with
but
the
I just
width of the house.
Yeah, just total proportion. Yeah, I mean I tried to scale it out by enlarging, on my computer, and you can't make it scale. It goes in increments that you can't necessarily scale, but they appear to be like 2.0 by 4.6 maybe, something like that. So that won't need egress. So I guess I just wanted there to be awareness and a discretion that if those are casement windows, the set, top and bottom will be coplanar, and it's a look that's been questioned before, so.
I'm in agreement. I think that's a valid thing, and I think it would look actually better with a single window in that case, in this case, because of the width and proportion of the structure.
So that basically is going to be an issue with the applicant, if he's okay with that, or when we get into deliberation. Ultimately, I find that a nice, pleasing proportion on a smaller building. But as a board, we need to realize that coplanar, those types of windows, there's been pushback on that, and I just wanted to call attention to the fact that if that's a casement window, that's what it'll be. The top and bottom glass are even, you know. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off for a pair that looks proportional, or just that means that the front and back would all, if the requirement is to do single hung or double hung windows, that means either 1 or 2 3x5 front, back, and then on the side where there's an upstairs bedroom. So, I mean, we need to be aware of what we're asking, I guess. So.
Well, and it sounds like you were planning on vinyl.
Yeah,
Well,
I was, but I missed the memo on that.
That's a whole, I mean,
That's a different, yeah, I'm just talking basically the configuration of the window.
correct.
Yeah.
And
Meeting
so
code.
if you don't go vinyl, and which he's not going to, because we
Yeah.
don't allow that, but other windows, could you, you know more than I do, but are there other of that size that have the style that we need?
No, that's the conflict. You would need a window that's probably 30% larger than you see there to meet egress. So it's going to be a single hung or a double hung window. You would either need a pair of those larger windows or just a single window in each case, or allow them to use that proportion, but realizing that it's not a single hung window, it'll be a casement window, so the glass top and bottom is coplanar, and that's one of our window discussions, and
Right.
there's been pushback against that before, but I mean, that in the case, I think we'll see this somewhat commonly with small buildings. So.
No, I think one larger window would probably be sufficient for the scope of this, right?
But in the same thinking, the roof line should be 12-12 if you're going to accommodate the taller window.
It is 12-12.
12, okay.
Yeah, the top of the window would stay the same, at the same header height, so the window would come down a little closer to the roof. If they use a single 3050 window, it'll just be probably about 30% larger than one of those. I'm just guessing, but that's what would be required to meet egress if we want to maintain the shadow line of a single hung or a double hung window, you know.
It'll also be a hip roof.
Beg your pardon?
It'll also be a hip roof.
Yeah, that won't matter. Yeah, it's just that, you can't achieve that exact proportion and meet code, because those would not be large enough for egress.
Okay.
So, that basically comes down to, and maybe we'll have to grapple with that in our deliberation, but, which is the more compelling, look, so anyway, just wanted to find out if you knew for sure, but I think that's going to be an issue. I will actually modify a little bit, and this we'll be deliberating a bit, but I, for one, questioned the horizontal windows in our design advice, but subsequently seeing the comments from neighbors, I fully understand their perspective of privacy. And so, you know, and this is a deliberation thing, I would not see it compelling to do 1/1 windows for that reason. On those left elevations, the higher horizontal windows will certainly help for privacy for both properties.
Right.
You know, now, that can't be achieved in the back unit where there's a middle bedroom. That would have to be
Right.
egress window.
Because it's the opposite.
Yeah, so, but no further questions for the applicant from me.
Okay.
Okay.
On the side windows in the rebuilding of Grandma's house, we just took and eliminated the bottom part of the sash in two windows, where I have a bathroom and a laundry room. So but proportionally, the upper half looks identical to the rest in placement and everything to 4 windows, like we have 4 windows on where I park my car and on the side of the house and where you look at it. And so the balance is still there. And proportion is still there. It's just that I've eliminated part of it, and so the view all comes out correctly, in my opinion.
So you have then essentially created something of a horizontal window with just upper sashes and
In the
getting
middle,
together?
yeah.
Okay.
Where I needed to, but yeah.
Yeah, these are relatively small. I don't know that, I guess,
Well, if you prefer
A pair-
more traditional window, I mean, there are ways of getting them. You could do some sort of covering on it so that it's, you know, not as transparent to the neighbors or neighbors in. I mean,
Yeah,
there's ways to get around that are less permanent, and then the
Yeah,
permanent solution
yeah.
could be the
Yeah, it's just-
aesthetically pleasing.
you might say a nod to that aspect. I mean, so they're again balancing the compatible look that we're trying to
Right, I
achieve.
think you can get around privacy
Yeah.
in
So I guess
affordable ways.
to Board Member Edgar's suggestion, I mean, just a pair of small windows, so would something like that seem more appropriate?
Proportionally, so if I'm working with a 3060, that I've got the upper half sash in proportion coming across, and then the view looks the same.
Well, let's talk about this in deliberation.
We'll talk about
Okay.
that in deliberation.
Yeah, please. So
No more
let's-
questions, I guess, from me. I don't know.
Okay. Questions of the applicant? I don't. I think I've gotten most of my questions I have answered. Anything you want to add at all?
I think one of you wanted me to drop the plate height upstairs to 6'8".
Right.
And to kind of make that like 1.5 story look. And I did drop it to 7 feet and then vaulted the
Thank you for
upstairs.
that. Yeah.
So 6'8" was kind of hard,
That
so we
helps.
did 7.
Yep, and I think that, that's a nod to the neighbor's concern, obviously. Neighbors never want anything built next door, we get it. But I appreciate that endeavor in dropping the plate line.
Yeah, I think it helps the overall design.
Yep.
So, okay, great. Thank you very much. We will go into deliberation now.
Okay?
And let's start with you. You don't get to start very often. So, anything you want to discuss?
To add, yeah, I think I'd like to discuss the options for the second story paired windows like you were discussing. So you think that to do a larger one single window, 1/1, would be a better, and what sizes would meet egress for a single?
I personally like this proportion.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to bring that up because that has been an issue. And that type of look, sometimes those are seen as faux double-hung windows. They're just basically a picture window, a single window with a bar across. And that has come up before as problematic when that showed up, when it was assumed that they were going to be single-hung windows. But in this case, the applicant is bound with egress, which in some cases that wasn't the case. Now, the lower windows, the kitchen windows, would not be bound for egress. Those could be single hung windows. My personal feeling is I like the proportion, and I think that the paired windows is a very typical look. So my personal lean would be to accommodate the casement windows in that case, just because I think that's a nice proportional look for the average person driving by. This is not an endeavor to disguise this as something that was built in 1910. I mean, it's a new development, but I just did want to bring that up because that then goes on to a larger discussion. Why could this person have these coplanar windows and I can't? And
well, especially as
an
we're
egress
making all
situation could, you might say, be the ongoing reasoning for that.
Right.
And it wouldn't come up in a smaller building, but I mean a larger building, but I suspect that we'll see this from time to time with middle housing, smaller buildings. So the question then becomes, is the shadow line of the two-step more important as a visual clue, or the paired looks more important? And
is there a preference you have between, it seems like you like the pair together.
I honestly like the look of the paired window, but yeah, so I would lean to that on a smaller building like that. When we get into our larger discussion of window types and so forth, you know, that's one of the things, and we pretty much, I think, where you can, would insist on that shadow line, the differentiation. But if we were to approve this configuration, then we are acknowledging that there are cases where that would be acceptable if there's something else overrides, and
That's what I was going to say, you're sort of setting the tone, especially with all of our, you know, trying to figure out these guidelines currently, so.
Well, and the fact that we're in the middle of this windows discussion, that's the
right.
other part of it. And so
Exactly.
it makes, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish up.
Well, I was going to say, if it's an issue of proportion too, would you propose putting the same sized windows on the back end of the house as the front, or are we only concerned with street facing?
It should be.
They're all bedrooms, all the upstairs. Yeah, so
Right.
those, the same thing applies there. The same thing would apply on the right elevation on one unit and the left elevation, because now it's a 3-bedroom iteration. I see it was a 2-bedroom when we saw it before, but so it looks like the upper floor got extended over the porch, where previously we had a lean-to back porch. But
In this thing, I think proportion of the windows is critical, and with a 12-12 pitch or vernacular view of the building, that we go with something that's readily available in something like a 3050, which it should be a marketable product out there that fits all the egress standards.
That will satisfy the egress, and that will give you your shadow line.
And give me one window into there. The width here is just, of the building is so small, so in width, I just don't think anything else would look proportionally correct.
So you're okay with the one larger window as opposed to the pair.
One larger window, but I want the relief around it to create the shadow lines and the aprons and stuff to
Yeah.
highlight it.
Yeah, and that would apply here.
Yeah, and then what we do is we kind of soften or mitigate the view.
And I don't disagree with that. I think that's a good idea. I am, on the left elevation, I was, as you remember, we were not, I did not like the horizontal windows. I felt that there could be a place for them on the lower end, possibly as like a piano type window. On the upper, I didn't literally like that, but the more with the security, or not security, I guess, with the neighbor's concern, on that particular elevation, it's basically 2 bathrooms and a stairway going up. I don't see a problem with the horizontal windows. And it makes, again, a nod to the neighbors saying, we're not opening this up to the world. It's only going to be small windows in the bathrooms, basically.
I would love to see it not horizontal, but even a smaller window, but
So to that point,
These are crank windows, though? The horizontal
I'm
ones,
guessing
or
those are fixed probably.
Are they fixed?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, fixed windows.
Yeah. What, to Board Member Egger's point there, what would you think of just in lieu of, let's say, it looks like probably about a 1.5 by 3 or 4 pairs of square windows. In other words, if that was just divided into, so you still kind of have that deal, but just a pair of square windows instead of one rectangular window in each instance, would that maybe be more important?
Square fixed.
Square fixed,
Okay.
yeah. So you divide it, with 4 inches between, and it could still be trimmed as one unit. That's not uncommon. That's like you would see on your paired single hung windows. They're trimmed as one unit, so you could use a pair of square windows in lieu of the rectangular window, have essentially kind of the same thing and a little bit more traditional look. Would that?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that would
I mean,
would
certainly the
mitigate.
horizontal windows harken modern, contemporary builds,
Yeah.
but it's not uncommon to see them in, a lot of
Yeah.
houses nowadays.
Right.
Yeah, I think a square would be
Pair of square.
appropriate. It would also, the benefit would be it would probably let more light in. I'm not sure the direction of that.
Yeah, they would, looking at the proportion, I would guess that they might get a little bit deeper, so you might have a pair of 2 by 2 windows, with 4 inches between or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah, and I think that there are ways to deal with privacy that are, like we were saying, less permanent. I mean, some people, I'm assuming this is for renters, right? This is for sale? Okay. So, whoever, buys the home, it's their choice whether they want to keep that open. For me, I like unblocked windows. I like to get the light in. It's, again, Oregon, and we don't get a lot of light, throughout the year. So, but if that's not somebody's thing, they can always, there's stickers and ways to, make windows more
Well, I was more worried about the neighbors.
translucent and transparent.
That's
as opposed
kind
to-
of what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
In other
I
words,
mean,
they won't have the perception. Yes, you can see out those windows.
Yeah.
But I'm the
Maybe
owner
the
of a
back-
building where I had to move a window because the neighbors didn't like it looking down in their yard, and we had to negotiate, and I moved a window. And so,
But on that one, on building 1, left elevation, that is not really impacting that so much. It's really building 2. Because building 1 is closer up to the street, and
well, there's 2 neighbors.
well, there are, but the one that was concerned about
Yeah.
that was on the back.
Yeah, I think they both commented.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I think they both commented in opposition, which is we get.
They were in opposition of the window placement.
They're in opposition to the building.
Opposition of the, yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm
But they mentioned, looking down into your yards and so forth, and well, I in my mind, that would not be a big ask and maybe a good compromise for the upper level, or any of the horizontal windows be replaced with just a pair of square windows that would have a little bit
Yes.
more traditional look. Does that?
Yeah. Oh,
And then they
absolutely.
could determine, size, if they want 2 by 2 or 18 inches by 18 inches or whatever like that.
Yes.
Right.
But-
Right, we're
Yeah.
not concerned as much
Yeah,
about the
they're going to stay,
smaller.
Yeah,
as
those look a
opposed to-
little less than 2 feet, so they might be a little lower, but, a pair of 2 by 2 windows,
Yeah.
or whatever like that,
Yeah, I think that would be much more appropriate.
okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine too.
So that really then leaves kind of where we at in sum total with the paired bedroom windows.
And we're proposing deleting all horizontals and replacing them with the squares, correct? Even on the first
All
floor?
Upstairs.
Yeah, so it's going to be all those upper floor paired windows that
All of the,
But there's some on the first floor as well, right?
the first floor windows are not bedrooms, so they can be smaller, they don't have to meet egress.
And while you're,
But
to
they
your
should
point
be-
there,
Those should be, yes, the lower floor windows that are smaller, I mean, any place where if we approve this look,
Well, the
the others where they should still be
The same
double hung or
type.
single hung, so you have, yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
talking about the side elevations.
the side
and
windows.
Right,
that one,
on the bottom.
this one
no,
here?
That one.
The horizontal ones.
that's true.
Right.
Right.
yeah.
But as I
So-
said.
I think,
last-
I think it might be reasonable to just say that no horizontal rectangle windows.
Right, okay.
Replace those with squared windows.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought for a minute you meant
No,
square up top,
no.
horizontal on the bottom, and I was like, no, I don't like that.
The paired windows that appear to be double hungs that would be all these upper floor windows, which are bedroom windows. So be front and back and side in each case.
Right.
Now, honestly, there's no proportion problem there. I would say that could be a single 3050, but that's kind of a non-issue. I mean, really, the only one that's very noticeable is the front one.
Right.
The front window on the lower level, if we changed up in the front to a 3050, and this could be a mini set, but,
Yeah, they can stay smaller, they can stay the size they are.
yeah, but again, but should have that look and feel.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that stays the same. But it does change the look to jump to a single 3050. Now, as you know, on my house, I have a 3050 up, but it's a larger gable, and I've got 2 flanking windows, and I think that's too big an ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this side, for this.
Yeah.
For affordable housing.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you get all that?
Well, we have to deliberate and decide.
Right, I'm just making sure they are
Yeah.
following us.
Yeah.
So we do have the condition number 3. So if you have a recommendation of how to redline condition number 3, Melissa will write it down and we can read it back as part of a motion.
Yeah, I guess that I would see that condition number 3 now basically saying no rectangle horizontal windows, they can be replaced by pair square windows. And you can say it better than me.
Well, it actually says, or smaller square casement awning fixed windows on there already.
Yeah, so we would,
But a 1 by 1 or smaller square casement, okay, yeah.
yeah, so that, or smaller square windows, yeah, that,
So it could be that we just take the number of windows out and just say, you basically get to use 1/1 or square casement, or just, and no rectangle is allowed. I guess the key is the number of windows proposed, the minimum number of windows you want on this elevation.
okay. Well, they would the number would go up if each
Yeah.
rectangular one gets replaced with 2, so that shouldn't become a code
But
problem.
they can be dummies. They don't have to be, they can be simulated. 2 windows simulated, but where I've got a divider into the middle of it, but it's basically one frame.
Well, I think what I'm suggesting is they are 2 separate windows though, not just one window with a mole bar.
Yeah.
Because that's a little bit the look that we're grappling with on the others.
Okay.
So I think that they need to be separate square windows, not just,
But they could be trimmed.
not just a horizontal, they can be
They
trimmed
could-
as a unit,
They could be
yes.
trimmed as a unit, though.
Yes,
That's,
right, which is very typical, you'll see 4
Yeah.
inches between them or something like that,
Yeah.
as opposed to one window with just a mole bar, because that still appears to be a horizontal window,
right.
and I think that's,
Is that also part of the casement, the mullion there? Is that going to be then the,
It will be trimmed.
or is there siding in between it, enough space for siding, or?
No, you would, you're going to see these windows wrapped with probably a 1x5, 1x4, so you would have probably a minimum of 1x4, we could say.
Right.
Minimum 3-inch separation if we want to, but I mean, they're going to do that if they used 2 separate windows as opposed to a single window with just a mole bar in it. So actually, the way that number 3 reads, because it says all windows must be 1/1 or smaller square casement on or fixed. So in other words, that approves it. We would simply just need to say no horizontal rectangle windows.
Right, because down here, it's remove upper story rectangle fixed windows
Yeah.
on 1 and 2. Ensure there are a minimum, which is what you
Ensure
were
there are a minimum of 4.
talking about,
See,
Christina.
that's,
That would be a minimum. That would be, even if you put doubles there, you'd still.
minimum of 4, 1/1, yeah, okay, so the actual verbiage there, you would have, it depends if we decide that these should be changed to a single one or not, but, so I guess maybe a combination of 2 1/1 windows and
Replace
4
them.
square windows.
right, because there's 2 more on the bottom.
Yeah, it sounds like instead of, or 4 square windows, fixed casement awning with an additional, that describes a minimum wrap, like a minimum.
Minimum of 4-inch
Yeah, more
separation.
separation.
Yeah,
Either paired or not paired, but paired a minimum separation.
Yeah.
yeah, right. So that basically then brings us back to, you might say, I mean, maybe we need a vote or whatever, like between us, the bedroom windows, single windows, and keep the shadow line, or the
Yes.
paired and let them use casement.
I'd say let's stay consistent, and I think with the shadow line and the single one.
So you're in favor of single one, you're in favor of single?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in favor of the other, but I lost.
I think, I mean, I think it's typically appropriate for it to be single on the front
Yeah.
and double on the back, but
Yeah.
for the purposes of moving things forward.
It's very
it
doable.
seems-
It's
yeah,
very doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And that will be, it's very, very standard window, and that'll work for his egress and so forth. So in that case, that Is that number 3 also? Let's see. So how would that read then? Correcting that, bedroom windows shall be a single 1/1 window.
Well, I think we already have that. Well, here's a question. If they're able to get their egress through what they propose, that should be fine. I would say alternatively, the applicant may also utilize a single 1/1.
That's fine.
You
Okay.
never know. Sometimes things
Yeah,
get approved.
if the front windows on both front and rear windows meet egress,
Sure.
we're home free.
Yeah, but so it'd be like alternatively, the applicant may also utilize
A larger single window.
A larger single 1/1
Yeah, okay,
window.
yep,
I like giving more options.
right.
Yeah. That
Okay,
sounds-
so Melissa, do you see the two changes, allowing a single 1/1 window for egress for the front and the rear bedrooms, and then switching it to 4 square windows with 4-inch?
4-inch separation.
So it's 4-inch separating
I,
in the trim, 4-inch trim separation?
on the replacement for the horizontal windows, a 3-inch, I might, because it's a small window.
Yeah,
It
3-inch?
proportionally.
okay, 3-inch.
3-inch.
3-inch is fine.
Of,
Yeah.
of the,
So that's not assuming siding, it's 3-inch trim wrap. Okay.
Minimum 3-inch separation.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that works.
proportionally.
Yeah. So back to the verbiage for the bedroom windows. I guess there needs to be a specification that those are single or double, they will be single hung. As opposed to, because otherwise, if we don't make that clarification, the casement window, they would say, well, that meets egress. But because it's coplanar glass and we're trying to avoid that, so I think that with those bedroom windows, the stipulation needs to be there that the bedroom windows shall be single hung or double hung, and if they need to be larger, can be replaced with one larger single hung for egress. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get that, Melissa? She's going to read out the revised condition before there's actually a vote. And as always, we write a condition and that staff is allowed some little
Yeah,
small changes
yeah.
because there's always weird things that come up, and we will do
You
our
can
best.
clean up the verbiage, you can see where
Yeah.
we're at on it, yeah.
But we also don't like giving too much direction because we like to say, well, we can't approve that, we can't approve that. So the grayer it is, actually the harder it is. So just give us a little bit, but not too much. Okay, well, oh, sorry.
So are we revising it to say the applicant shall revise all rectangle horizontal windows to be replaced with 4 separate smaller square windows with a 3-inch minimum separation?
Correct.
Okay. And then this is for the front windows, front and rear, I believe. Alternatively, the front and back and rear, if they meet egress shall be single hung or double hung, or if large enough can be 1/1, or what was that?
So alternatively, the front and rear windows may be a single 1/1, single or double hung window to meet egress.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You got anything else? Any concerns about the porch that we jointly feel like it should be changed to a hip roof, or
So the hip roof,
the picture shows a shed roof. That was the other
just a straight shed or?
Right. So are the roofs going to be identical
Yeah,
on both
it's, so
structures?
it's just showing us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Street
Okay,
shed.
because it looks like, so it was only altered on the one drawing, right?
So it would be just the front unit, that, now the condition, or the conditions as they were stated there was for differentiation. Now, there is differentiation because they've changed the rear unit now to a porch that's covered with the upper level. So they are differentiated.
Yes.
The front and back unit. So I guess it's just a question of, and actually, I think that was my suggestion. The design advice was, consider a hip roof. I'm not strong on that. What's your folks'
It's,
thoughts?
in the degree of history that I've witnessed and watched and looked over, the hip roof on a porch on these buildings is the dominant
Right,
design.
a hip roof is more appropriate, I think,
Yeah.
for American vernacular. It's, flat is more indicative of like colonial or something like that, colonial revival or.
So you think that the hip roof is probably more?
I think the hip makes more
Yeah.
sense, yes.
On the front elevation of building 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
But not on building 2, sorry. since I
No,
missed
building
last time.
2 actually just has the porch recessed under the upper level. So
Right.
it doesn't have a porch per se.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's just to make access easier for that back unit because that pushes the front door of the back unit back like 3 feet, so you have more space to get in there. That's the reason.
Got it, okay.
It's not to like make them look different or anything. It was just purely for function.
Practical, okay.
It puts a little bit more footage on the main floor on that back unit, it
Got
pushes
it.
the kitchen wall forward a little bit,
Okay, got it.
which works for me. That's hardly going to be seen.
Right, that's the back unit, so yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't know if there was a reason there that, yeah.
So then back to our conditions, the wording on that porch.
The applicant.
Yeah, so condition, I think it shows 1 here, I think that's 4, number 4.
Yeah.
Yes, we like that.
That's PowerPoint being very unhappy with formatting. Apologies.
Yeah. So then, as I see it, it's basically, if we're all right with an approval with revised
Just
condition.
real quickly, I want to reiterate that the condition relates to it's basically a 2 pair of 2 windows, 4 windows total, right? So of the upper windows, it's a pair of 2 and a pair of 2.
I was kind of questioning that
Yeah.
also myself.
So
yes, it seems like that's the pair with the 3-inch, pair with the 3-inch,
Yeah, so
right?
4 total, 2
4.
pairs.
So there's actually 8
Oh, no.
total?
No,
Or is
there's
there
4 total, 2 and 2.
2 and 2, but then at the bottom as well.
Oh, I thought the bottom is, I thought it was just the upper windows. I
It
think
was the
we're
upper levels.
keeping the bottoms as
Okay,
is.
okay,
Because those are more like piano windows or,
yes. So we were saying 4, I was like, is it?
Yeah,
is it
so
2,
it's
is it 4?
4 total, 2 and 2.
Okay.
Can you make sure that that's in the revised
So
version?
before we make a motion on this, I want to ask the applicant, if you're following it and you have any questions.
Yeah, so the horizontal windows on the bottom level, they're okay to stay, but on the second level, you want the double squares. Is that
I
what's
thought we
going on?
wanted the squares on the bottom as well.
I thought we would change.
Yeah, all the horizontals would be.
Okay,
square.
So it
That's where I was
is
counting.
it is 8 windows then.
So if we're asking him to then do the pair again, are we asking him to do the pairs on the top, pair on the top, and then the pair on the bottom, or just the single fixed square on the bottom?
Yeah,
Single fixed
I'm
square at the
okay with
bottom?
that. In other words,
Okay.
every place
So
that
six.
Where there's a horizontal.
So
every place the horizontal
Okay.
window appears, it gets
I
replaced.
heard differently, so thank you.
Yeah, that's where I was like,
Okay.
Okay.
is it double or is it,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, if nothing else, for consistency.
Right, because we decided
Yeah.
when we're talking that
Yeah.
the horizontal, to pair the horizontal and the squares, it just doesn't,
Okay, got it.
it's too many configurations,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, and then the hip on the porch, that's what you guys settled on, hip roof on the porch, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then the single window option upstairs if I need it. That's it, right? That's basically, those three things, basically.
And we're still asking for black windows?
Yeah.
Is it, okay.
The window, the condition has the window sash, the darkest of the three color schemes, so it could be bronze or black or, you know, whatever the dark color options.
Okay,
Just not vinyl.
just not vinyl, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good, I think. I don't think I
All right.
think I have any questions.
Okay. Then if that's the case, I'll bring it back up here.
I move for approval with conditions as have been modified by our request.
Okay. We have a motion
I will second.
and a second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Edgar,
Aye.
Board Member Fulkerson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Green,
Aye.
Chair Powell.
Aye. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice project.
Okay, all righty. This is a second public hearing, GLUA 25-00002 and HR 25-00002. Solar panels at 507 Madison Street. And I will ask again if any board members have any conflict of interest, or if you have visited the site.
I have no conflict of interest, and I have not visited the site, but I have driven through the area a lot.
Okay, no conflict of interest, no ex parte contact, and I have visited the site.
Okay.
No conflict of interest, and I have not visited the site.
I live like a house away from the site, so I visit it darn near every day. And I have not spoken with the neighbor about it, or any other neighbors at this point about it. So, and I have no ex parte contact, and we can move on. So, staff reports.
Good evening, Chair Powell and Historic Review Board members. I did want to make one quick correction up front. It is GLUA-25-00005. Unfortunately, on the agenda, as it was uploaded a week ago, it was mistyped as 2 instead of 5. So in the staff report, it has the correct number, but just.
All right,
just
consider
for
it
the record.
changed.
Yeah. I'm Jude Tadeus, Assistant Planner here at the Oregon City Community Development Department, and I'm here to present the staff report for GLUA 25-00005 and HR 25-00002, the 13-panel solar array proposal at 507 Madison Street, which is the designated historic Christian and Agnes Schubel House in the McLaughlin Conservation District. Next slide, please. Today we're here to discuss and consider 3 main aspects for the landmark. One, this project involves a designated historic landmark, the Christian and Agnes Schubel House in the McLaughlin Conservation District. 2, the proposed 13-panel solar array is to be located in such a way that staff cannot review and approve the project through a type 1 process because it doesn't comply with HRB Policy 12. Number 3, this is due to the fact that all 13 panels are proposed to be located on the primary facade of the landmark rather than the secondary facades as required by HRB Policy 12. Next slide, please. Ordinarily, solar panel projects like these would be subject to a type 1 staff level review to determine if HRB policies have been met, and the verbiage is here on the slide for HRB Policy 12. The reason we're bringing this to you is because of the section of the policy noted in red. This project proposes to locate all 13 of the solar panels on the primary southeast facing Madison Street facade, which is the roof plane with the highest solar irradiance. All other aspects of this proposal appear likely to comply with the 5 points that follow the main consideration shown in red. Next slide, please. Planning staff request direction from the Historic Review Board given these questions. Would permitting the proposed array configuration adversely impact the resource or district? Would permitting the proposed configuration meet the comprehensive plan's goals for historic preservation, economic viability, and taking maximum advantage of available solar energy on balance? Or 3, would the alternative configuration, which I will discuss in the public comment phase of this presentation, with less primary facade prominence, be both viable for the project and not adversely impacted by the landmark? For question 3, the applicant has submitted a public comment stating that a specific alternative layout can keep the project viable. We'll discuss this configuration later in the presentation. Next slide, please. The Christian and Agnes Schubel House is located 2 blocks southwest of 7th Street, 1 block south of the Oregon City Public Library, a block northeast of 4th Street, and 5 blocks southeast of the McLaughlin Promenade in the McLaughlin Conservation District. The home faces Madison Street to the southeast and an improved alley to the northeast. This site also borders the Arthur and Daisy Farr House, a designated landmark at 503 Madison Street. To the southwest, the George Randall House, another designated landmark at 807 5th Street to the northwest, and the John F. and Elizabeth Albright House and Rental, both designated landmarks across the alley to the northeast at 812 6th Street and 503 Madison Street, respectively. In the second image here to the right, you can see the subject site is ringed in yellow there, and then the neighboring historically designated properties are in purple on that second image to the right, just as a frame of reference. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So this is a large side gable bungalow that exhibits craftsman detailing in its bracketed wide overhang. And excuse me, I'm going to drink another sip here. Lap siding covers the structure, including the small shed roof dormer that pokes out facing the street. 1/1 wood double hung windows are the norm, with the exception of the multi-panel paned fixed windows on the bay that sticks out on the northern facade. A full width porch runs along the front of the house under the main gable. A water table sits on top of a poured concrete foundation. There's an exterior chimney on the south side. A carport sits below the house in the back as the terrain drops off quickly to the west. As the historic inventory form from 2002 says, in 1927, Christian and Agnes Schubel purchased this property. They were born in Pennsylvania in 1866. Schubel came to Oregon City in 1878, having almost no formal education, gained a wide variety of job experience. He worked for the Crown Willamette Pulp and Paper Company while studying law in night school at the University of Oregon. Schubel was admitted to the bar in 1897 and became a prominent Oregon City attorney. He acted as deputy district attorney, served on the city council, and also had 3 terms as Clackamas County's representative in the state legislature. Throughout his career, Schubel remained committed to improving working conditions at Oregon's mills and factories, and was responsible for legislation establishing workers' compensation, limiting working hours, and establishing a state board of conciliation and arbitration. He also converted Oregon City to the city manager system of administration, drafted the state's general fund bill, and introduced and helped to pass several other important bills dealing with taxation and labor. I go into all of this not because it's particularly relevant to the solar panel configuration, but I just thought that the significance of this landmark's association with Christian Schubel was something worth noting. Next slide, please. As it concerns the actual landmark, it was difficult to find head-on views where the landmark wasn't obscured by mature street trees at the pedestrian level. This and the following 2 images are courtesy of Google Street View and dated August of 2024. Next slide, please. The primary roof plane is moderately pitched and somewhat obscured by street trees that line Madison Street. The much shallower pitched dormer shed roof is not terribly visible from the pedestrian level. Next slide, please. Significant street tree coverage is notable looking south from Madison Street across the opening to the alley there as well. And you can see the drop off in grade sort of reflected at the alley and retaining wall. Next slide, please. So all 13 panels are proposed to be located on the southeastern primary Madison Street facing planes. 10 panels are to be located on the lower pitched dormer shed roof plane, generally above view from the pedestrian level. 3 panels are proposed at the southern corner of the of the primary roof plane. Ancillary equipment appears to be located well back from the street and unobtrusive to the primary facade. And you can see in the image on the left here, the main pack of 10 panels located on the shed roof over the dormer, and then the 3 panels on the lower left corner of the primary roof plane. And then it's reflected in the render to the right as well. Next slide, please. The solar irradiance study, which is represented in the image on the left on this slide, shows significantly more irradiance and solar energy collection potential along the Madison Street facing facade compared to any other roof plane. And the shade report also shows significant shade cover over the secondary roof planes facing to the northwest. The shade report is that image to the right. I'll move on to the public comments that were submitted. We received 2. Public comments were submitted by Wendy Marshall, representing the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association on April 10th, 2025. And I've summarized them here. Public notice signs were posted to the site on March 24th and are to be removed after today if the hearing is not continued. The McLaughlin Neighborhood Association expressed a need for clarification on the proposed panel count. Question about eliminating or moving the 3 panels on the primary side gable and their impact on project feasibility and so on. I sort of list the concerns here. Next slide, please. In addition, today, Infinity Solar submitted public comments that I've summarized here as well, saying that the 3 panels on the primary roof plane are necessary to fulfill all of the customer's electrical usage requirements. If they are removed, the system would not produce enough to cover all of the usage, resulting in a partial PGE bill during winter months. The panels could be moved to the other side of the array shown circled in the submitted picture. So they kind of represented an alternative location that would generate a sufficient amount of solar electricity for the project in the alternative. Next slide, please. So here's a summation of the Oregon City Municipal Code for historic overlays for exterior alterations. As energy prices rise and renewable technology becomes more affordable, more common, and more critical to society's response to climate change, the board will have to balance these factors with the concerns of historic integrity. Because the panels are only placed on the roof and will not cover or destroy historical materials or features that are designed to be removed in the future without causing irreparable damage to the structure, the board may find that the panels will not affect the integrity of the structure. In fact, the investment may prolong the overall preservation of the home. Next slide, please. When studying the goals, policies, and strategies of the Oregon City 2040 Comprehensive Plan, 2 points stood out, 1 historic and 1 not. The Historic Review Board may or may not see these policies as relevant to one another and use that as the basis for a decision. Staff is requesting confirmation from the Historic Review Board as to whether the resource and the proposed configuration taking maximum advantage of solar irradiance are significant mitigating factors to allow street visible solar panel placement. If the board finds that these panels will impact the historic integrity of the home, the proposal's impacts may also be mitigated by limiting the number of panels on the street facing roof planes or by altering the configuration so that the panels are moved to secondary planes. I have included revised recommended conditions here. You can, if you wish, you can compare those to the conditions in the staff report itself. But these 5 are the conditions given the applicant's public comments that were received today. I specifically took out the former condition 3. Planning staff is seeking direction from the Historic Review Board to determine if this file, as proposed, does or does not adversely impact the historic resource. And the recommended conditions of approval are sort of encapsulated in point 2 there. The applicant shall submit documentation confirming that the number and location of the panels mounted on the primary facade facing the southeastern Madison Street frontage are necessary for the viability of the project, or that the proposed alternative configuration is the only alternative that would make the project viable. That is the change in conditions, major change in the conditions from the staff report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Typical array of options here. If you approve, then you agree to adopt the staff report with the revised conditions shown in this presentation. If you wish to modify the conditions, we ask that you explain why and specify desired modifications to conditions so that staff can include them in revised findings. If you wish to deny and continue, please provide concise findings for denial, and I will include them in the final notice of decision. And if you feel like you need additional information to make a decision, please provide direction to staff and the applicant regarding the specific information you will need to make that decision. And then the matter will be continued to the following meeting.
All righty, thank you. No applicant tonight?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Then questions of staff? No? All right.
The 3 panels on the side, are those 3 panels, so the question is, without them, it may not, it reduces the viability of the project?
Right, if you look at the summary of the shade report, that those 3 panels account for 11% of the total access. So what the applicant, and I guess the applicant and his solar company is saying is that if those 3 are not included, then he won't meet he won't meet what he wants, and he'll have a bill in the winter because he's not getting enough solar buildup. That's basically that.
But then the public comment stated that they were kind of dubious on whether or not the solar study was, what was the public, I don't want to put words where they're not.
From
The question of the shading report for one.
Yeah, they said question about the,
Slide 12.
the adequacy of the shade report and its lack of data supporting the proposed configurations. So, yeah, so they were just sort of questioning the shade report essentially?
Yes, the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association comments questioned whether there was adequate information in the shade report that ruled out other alternative configurations that wouldn't be as visible.
Right.
And the comments that we received from the applicant Integrity Infinity Solar indicated that there is an alternative configuration where the 3 panels move to the upper, the upper right primary roof plane instead of the lower left, and that would achieve roughly the same energy output result.
Yeah, and having not visited the sites, maybe you can speak to this. I don't think that changing it from that area to the other is going to make a huge visual impact on the roof itself. It doesn't seem like it.
No, it won't make any difference, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's something we can deliberate, right? Okay, so let's talk about that. If any others, we're done with staff here, any questions, then we'll bring it up to here and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So the question is, moving those 3 that are on the right, the front left, moving them up to the top right, will that make a visual difference? And I'm saying it won't. In my opinion, it won't matter. My issue is those 3 units. And looking at the shade report, and I'm assuming it's correct, I'm looking at if you're looking at the house, it's the rear right side. They're showing that there is solar back on that, I guess it's the back side of the back next to the garage or the back side of the garage.
The
Hard to
image
say.
to the left on the slide shown here, that the solar irradiance image there to the left?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but it appears to me that they could put 3 or maybe 4 there and pick up what they lose of the 3 in the front. Because it shows that it appears, and again, from the shade report, it assures that there's possibility of getting 4 over on that plane in pretty reasonable solar.
Right.
From what it looks like to me. And my opinion is I think it's very much a visual impact having those 3 facing Madison Street. I think the ones that are up on top of the shed dormer there, I think that would be fine because that's really going to be, I looked at it from different directions and I think that one would be just fine. So the bulk of those, which is 93%, would be pretty good. And if they put 4 on that far back corner, I would hope by adding another one, they could pick up that 11%. That's my feeling.
I agree. I think that the issue here are the 3 panels. And that, a bungalow, that its roof is everything. I mean, that's its significance. So, and then just the side gable there, it's gonna, the lowering, I guess, the pitch of the roof is gonna, it's gonna show no matter where you put it, on that upper right-hand side or the lower left-hand. It doesn't make a difference. People are gonna it's still gonna be a visual impact. So if the heat map is correct, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to put it on the exact spot that you selected, the back right there, as opposed to the front left. So that would be, I support that alternative, but.
I'm in agreement.
I'm not surprised. I think we all feel that way. The 3 on the main roof are problematic. I mean, I don't see those as, so when they discuss viability, that's rather subjective. In other words, if they're getting 93% and you still pay some power bill in the winter, the trade-off being the historic value that would be given up. I concur. Now, what I find a little interesting on the irradiance report is that the back dormer roof shows no difference, and you've got an 18-degree slope versus 27. There would be some difference in irradiation. It may not be enough that may be a fairly generic look, but I mean, if you considered if that dormer was 10 degrees and the main roof was 60 degrees, there would be a significant difference in irradiation because of the angle. So, the back dormer could be a good option for maybe 4 panels. They get 1 more panel and they may come close to it. So I guess in my mind that if we agree that the panels on the main portion of the front roof are a no-go, then it basically, the ball can go in the court of the customer and the solar provider. We can approve the 10 panels on the low slope dormer, but any other panels would need to be on the secondary roof planes, and then they can decide where's the best place, how much does it cost, and decide the viability then on their own. But it seems like
Right. Well, that's why I suggested that, because you're still showing a very high percentage, 700 to 1,000 on that far end, at the
Yeah.
top end. So
Yeah.
that to me, and it looks like 4 will fit there.
Yeah.
That just makes it
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And the other question I had was the equipment. Did they have a location for their equipment? Will that be
They
off
did.
the alley or off the?
Yes, if you look at the I'm not sure which slide it is.
It's on the
Site-
alley side, I
Site
think.
plan slide with the two circles on it. There you go. So if you look directly above that larger circle on the site plan there, it's on the equipment is to be located on the alley side.
Okay, yeah, but that's in that back corner too.
Yeah.
I think it was clear down in the,
Yeah, right here, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking.
yeah,
So it would be right,
okay. When you get down into the solar providers, he shows all his equipment there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
yeah. So I think that's fine.
that's fine. I was less concerned, but I didn't see it. I must have just
Yeah,
missed that.
yeah.
Okay. Great.
It's small, easy to
It
miss.
is, well, that's what we want it to be, small and out of the way, for sure.
So I guess to the conditions, would it be number 2? Can we go back to that slide? Option number 2, I guess. Excuse me, Amanda. I made option number 2 of the choices to us, approve with revised findings or,
Let's see. Well, that we'd have to change for sure, because that says this Madison Street frontage.
Is necessary.
And
I was just thinking the procedure, which option it was.
Oh, yeah, I think,
There we go.
This, yeah.
we go.
Approve the pros with modified conditions and provide, so I think that would be it, right? So the modified B conditions would be no panels on the primary front roof
Correct.
plane.
Right.
and a suggestion.
And the ones on the dormer can remain.
Well, then they can,
To look at an alternate.
Yeah.
yeah, they can do that because they don't need HRB
Yeah.
approval
Yeah.
to put them on the
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
to keep
Yeah.
it simple, I'm sure Jude is ready, and I'd recommend just what the board is approving, which are the panels on the dormer. Any additional panels shall meet HRB policy 12.
On secondary roof
Yeah.
planes, yeah.
So the dormer
Yeah, okay.
panels are
Yes.
fine.
Yeah, so I think you're positively approving the dormer panels, and all other panels must meet HRB policy 12.
Is that what I'm
Correct.
understanding?
Yeah,
So
did
I'm
you
like,
ever-
yes, but is that what everybody else is understanding?
Yes.
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 okay.
You didn't have a problem with dormer panels?
No.
Yeah,
okay.
the 10 panels on the dormer
Yeah.
are fine. And any additional panels would be mounted on secondary roof planes. So,
Is that,
That was very elegantly put, and I will make sure that the conditions are revised to reflect that. Just a moment here. I need to write it out, and then I'll read it back to you.
so I guess I would move to approve, what number is it?
HR.
GLUA 25-00005 and HR 25-00002.
Okay, with revised findings to eliminate any panels on the main street facing roof plane. Additional panels would be on secondary roof planes.
Okay, real quickly, before a vote, would you mind reading the revised condition?
The revised condition, as I've written it, says any additional panels beyond the 10 located on the Madison Street dormer shed roof shall meet HRB policy 12 and be located on secondary roof panels.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Edgar?
Aye.
Board Member Fulkerson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Green?
Aye.
Chair Powell?
Aye. Okay, thank you, Jude, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Powell and Historic Review Board members.
Okay, Christina, communication?
The only communication I have is next month, we have another 6 PM work session. Sorry, we've had a lot lately. Carrie Richter will be coming in with our yearly Legal 101. So we'll talk preservation and procedural legal training. So it'll be from 6 to 7. And we have one hearing scheduled. And then we will have Kristen come back after the hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, she had 20 minutes. She could have hung around. We could have knocked that window thing right out. Okay, that's it?
That's all I have.
Anything from the,
Oh, actually, no, I have one more, I apologize.
Go ahead.
I sent an email to you all in preparation for the Ruth Powers Award, which we give out every May during Preservation Month. It'll be given out at the second City Commission meeting in May, which I think is May 15th. How it works is I solicit nominations. I have a couple, some nominated last year's winner, so that was rejected, but I'm going to send out the email again. This is for a person, a project that was approved by the board, or even just a community member who has just slowly, rehabbed their house outside of and just lovingly taken care of it. So it can be many reasons. We've had all versions before. It could be quality infill. All options are open. So the board, what I'll do is after I receive the nominations, I'll send it out with BCC kind of voting back to me. If there is a concurrence, then, I'll let everyone know. If there's not, we'll troubleshoot it. But generally, and all the times I've been here, projects generally rise to the top. So people generally coalesce on one project. Last year, we had a person and a project too. So look for the email. I will need to have that resolved by the end of April. So keep seeing emails from me and start thinking.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple I'll send you. All right, very good. I guess that if that's it, then we are adjourned.